Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin. So today we are having our third lesson of our course on monotheism and atheism. So in the last lesson, I was talking about some of the aspects of the argument of design or pattern or organization in the universe, in creation. So I said that what is meant by order and design is a relationship between two things or more. So with two things, three things, four things, five things, a million things. Hence, there is a relationship between things that is established amongst the parts of the universe and the members of an entity. This system, this pattern, is inseparable from the principle of causality, which we will talk about later, inshallah. But causality is that there's a cause and effect system. Hence, when we see the relationship between wind and rain, the relationship between air and the order that occurs between these things, all the things in the world as example, it shows us, it unveils to us that there is an interrelation between these things. There is an interaction between these things. Yes, we may not know everything about the secrets of the universe. Only Allah knows everything. We are only knowing what Allah allows us to know. We are dependent and needy creatures. All creation are limited, finite. And we need Allah the Exalted. Allah is the Absolute. He knows everything. Allah is all-powerful. So he's sure, okay, we may not know the answers to everything, but we know about many things, many things. And looking at these many things, we can infer, we could understand that there is purpose, pattern, and interrelation in things. So we can observe from all these above that there is an existing order, an existing design, an existing pattern in the universe. And such order, pattern, and design requires that there is a designer. That designer must be knowledgeable, wise, and powerful to be able to do this. So now we want to start some of the critiques. Now, I didn't bring everything here, but brought some critiques. So David Hume, who died around 776 Common Era. So this is over 200 years ago. Right, so close to we're some 50 something years away from 300 years. So 240 some years ago, David Hume, he was an empiricist and a skeptic philosopher. He is one of the Western philosophers. Now, we deal with talking about Western philosophers many times in our theology, our philosophy, and our philosophy of religion. We bring these people up sometimes and critique them. Even in our contemporary philosophy, you'll find these things. So Muslim thinkers, Shia thinkers, they're interacting, some of them, with these thoughts of modern times, which is important to do, to interact and to refute them. But we just have to be firm in our understandings, and then we could address them properly. So otherwise, we wouldn't know what they're talking about, and it'd be like sophistry to us. It would convince us of something that's not true in the incorrect matters. So there is quite a difference between Western philosophy and Muslim philosophy. Western philosophers and Muslim philosophers. Although we may not agree with everything in Muslim philosophy, when we research within the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, guys, we have to find that aql, intellect, takes us to a place of taslim, takes us to a place of submission. It recognizes that it cannot go any further. It must submit. It recognizes that Allah exists. It has many, many important features. It realizes many, many things. It's a beautiful gem that Allah has created in us, but it cannot traverse outside of its limit. It gets to a point where it's as if it says, Allah, I submit. It gets to a point where it submits to Allah, and what Allah says, that refines its views, that directs it the right way. And what it agrees, what is logical fact and firm in that aql, in that intellect, it will agree with Din al-Haq, the true, authentic line of religion. So, although we may not agree with everything in philosophy, so we don't want to just blindly follow philosophers, because some things may seem very appealing, but sometimes we have to check, what's the Quran say? What's the Hadith of Ahlul Bayt say? That's the point, because maybe in our minds we understand a possibility. That possibility may seem like it solves the problem, but another possibility may have solved the problem. So we go, we see, did Ahlul Bayt say something about this? Does Quran say something about this? Now it will show us the right direction. So in religion we have different propositions, religious propositions. We could say that we take the religious propositions. We have rational propositions, things which the intellect says are, things which are like logical facts, things intellect proves. Then we have things that are non-rational. Non-rational are things that intellect has no argument about. It's all right with it. It's cool with it. It's something fine with it. It has no argument against it, and it can't prove it itself. And then we have irrational propositions. Something which is irrational is something which the intellect has an argument against it. Intellect has an argument against it. So this irrational one, that's not in the authentic line of religion. Rational ones, non-rational ones, yeah, sure, we could find that in the religion. We could find things that, okay, our intellect couldn't reach, and we find things that the intellect confirms and affirms to. And then there's things which the intellect has the basis, and the details are, you find the details in the religion, in the Din al-Haq, the authentic line of religion. So anyways, okay, so anyhow, David Hume, he opposed many philosophical principles. He opposed many metaphysical principles. Meta just means after physics, right? After the physical. But this first philosophy, really, it talks about existence, coexistence. It talks about things like causality. The subject matter of first philosophy is wujud. wujud, existence, qua existence. So metaphysics, they sometimes call it, but it doesn't mean something that is outside of physics, because they have the topic here. What about material things? What about physical things? What about worldly existence? What contingent existence? All these different topics to talk about in philosophy. So it doesn't mean something outside of physics, metaphysics. That's not what it doesn't mean, like, just spiritual things we're talking about. No, talking about the topic is existence, qua existence in philosophy. So, anyways, David Hume, he had opposed many philosophical principles. And what he did was he tried to critique the proofs used for the existence of God. Now, during his time, the popular proof for the existence of God was this argument of design. So during the time of David Hume, this was the popular argument. So Hume, he had some misgivings that we shall have a glance at. Some of them, inshallah, and we're going to respond. So let's look at what David Hume's, some of his misgivings about the argument of design. So the first misgiving. David Hume, he held the claim is that the argument of design is founded upon comparison and similarity. And this is a phenomenon in the universe linked to human artifacts, such as a house or a machine. Like if you see a watch, human artifact, a watch, it will tell you that it has a designer, has a watchmaker. So David Hume, he claims that the reason we realize the existence of a builder or a watchmaker or a designer is because we have experienced it before. Hence, we have observed it in the world through sense perception from human artifacts, but not from its emergence by means of a wise and intelligent creator. Otherwise, it would be on the basis of previous experience. Now, point here is that we don't only know things through sense perception. Sense perception is your taste, sight, smell, touch, and hearing. These are your sense perceptions, the five senses. And we use bodily organs to interact with them. We see things with the eyes, we hear things with the ears, we taste things with the tongue, we touch things with the hand, feet, body. We smell things with the nose. So the claim that we only get knowledge about something through sense perception is wrong. It's incorrect. Why? There are many things that we don't get through sense perception. Many things we don't know through sense perception, like dreams. When you're having a dream, you may hear, see, taste things, experience things without the use of your bodily organs. So dreams are an example of this. Other things we know and we realize things without observing that thing outside. We only see like instances outside. So we get something in the mind that is also not sensed. So there's things that we have which are not experienced through sense perception. Even the mere fact of our eye-ness. Our eye-ness doesn't come through our eyes, our ears, and our nose, and our hands, and our hearing for us to know that I exist. Ibn Sina had this blind man theory. So if you were to suspend a guy in suspension in midair, cut off all his senses, he would still realize that he exists, that I-ness is there, even without hearing, smell, seeing, touching, tasting, seeing all these things. He would still realize and admit that I-ness is there. So there are things that we know without any experience in the external world. So this is some points towards that. So anyways, so let's see. Answer to Hume. Hume, the answer that we could give to Hume is the argument of design is not an empirical proof. As an empirical proof is when had al-kubra, the major premise in a syllogism, is empirical. So you go to ilmu mantiq here. Ilmu mantiq, the science of logic. So in ilmu mantiq, we have syllogisms. Syllogisms is how we prove something. So we put things in prepositions and syllogisms and we get a result. So we get a minor premise and a major premise. And then we get a natija, a result. It has special rules in ilmu mantiq and things like that, and you have to. That's a lot of study in ilmu mantiq. But anyways, the argument against him at an academic kind of level here is that okay, an empirical proof is when you have the had al kubra, the major premise in this syllogism, being empirical. But in this argument of design, the major premise, had al-kubra, is a rational ruling, as ultimate order requires awareness and willpower to do so. Hence, it is not possible when we observe ultimate order to interpret it except as with the acceptance of a wise and powerful independent creator. Hence, the use of human artifacts is intended in this argument to only cite examples. When we bring up human artifacts like a watch, a building, the creation of a person, the creation of the mountains, the rain, the wind, all these things, this is not the major premise. This is only to give examples from a rational and axiomatic perspective, not to make comparisons as the foundation of the argument. Hence, the focus and criteria here in this argument is rational outcome of ultimate order. And such may be observed by sense perception or not. We can observe ultimate order. We could observe pattern and order with sense perception and without sense perception. Hence, the emergence of pattern can be witnessed by sense perception or not, like mathematical patterns. Okay, we see things outside in the external world that we can count. But the mathematical pattern in the mind, this is in the mind. This is pattern which is in the mind. It's not something that is sensed like that. We're got an idea in the mind which we are applying to instances that we write on a board and we give a mathematical equation. But these mathematical patterns are in our dhinni, it's in our mental subjective world. Hence, when the ultimate order is the criteria here in the argument for judging on itself, when we compare that ultimate order with the natural order and pattern to the human, it doesn't weaken the argument. Rather, it presents to us that the fact that there is order indicates upon perfections of ultimate order, which requires an orderer and a designer. So the mere fact that we bring about order, that we talk about order here and design, doesn't make our argument weaker, because it's hitting upon that there's a perfection of ultimate order, that there is ultimate order, and that order requires a designer, an order. A second thing is the claim that it can be accepted that this argument of design, there is a super manager of the universe, but it will not prove the existence of a creator. So this is the claim of that's made as a critique against the argument of design. So they say, in critiquing the arguments of design, they say that it can be accepted that this argument of design here is a super manager of the universe, but it will not prove the existence of a creator, as described in religious scriptures, a God that has no defect at all in his attributes of glory and beauty. So they say it won't prove that from a particular effect. So they say we can infer a cause which is capable of bringing the said effect into existence from limited and finite universe. We cannot arrive at the limitless and infinite creator. Okay, so here it is. So the response. What is the response to this critique? So the response is, every proof has its intended purpose and reason. Every argument has an intended purpose and meaning, has an intended purpose and reason for it. And this argument, what's being intended over here, is nothing except to refute the materialist view and prove the world and nature is an effect and is created and has come into being according to a conscious, aware, knowing, wise designer and planner, and why it has a plan and design to it. But the issue, if the creator is infinite in terms of existential perfections or not, or other things about the creator, is not the aim of this argument. So to critique it with this is not appropriate, because that's not the aim of the argument. You're stepping outside of the bounds of the argument here. Hence, it proves that there is a creator, this argument, but we have to go into other arguments for those other issues, for those other things about the creator. Okay, third critique. So the third thing is the claim. So the claim of those who critique this. They say the world of nature is more than being similar to a ship or a house or other artifacts. Rather, the world of nature is more similar to a living being like a plant or an animal. Therefore, instead of considering an external cause of the universe, we can consider an internal cause. They say we can consider an internal cause rather than external. So what's the answer? The answer, we have two answers here. First, comparing the world of nature to the animal or the plant is problematic logically. It's problematic logically. Why? Because animals and plants are both parts of the world of nature. So you're comparing the world of nature to the world of nature, right? So maybe this is, a loop. You're proving something that needs to be that we're trying to prove again. You're proving something that is going around in a circle. So the whole approach of the argument becomes problematic. Second thing is the belief that the system of the universe is a dynamic system. This system being a dynamic system does not contradict theistic belief about the relationship of God as the creator of the universe. Because concomitance is established between the ultimate order and the involvement of knowledge and willpower in the appearance and emergence and limits. So there's involvement of knowledge and willpower in the appearance of this universe, in the appearance of order and design, in the emergence of order and design, in the limits of order and design, in the regulations of that order. And if such knowledge and willpower cannot be found within the universe, as example, we don't find animals having that trait. We know humans can't do this. Even though maybe some of them want to think and pretend in their minds that they are, like God, but they're not. They can never do this. They're not able. They're feeble, weak. So we don't find that in the universe that we know. We don't find that in the universe. Animals having traits, we don't find animals having such traits, not even humans having such traits to be able to do this, to be able to make this design. Then we must admit something non-physical, independent, which is the origin of this system and pattern that we are observing. And this is what the argument of design intends to prove. So these are 3 critiques and responses to those critiques on the argument of design. In the next lesson, we will continue, inshallah, disproving this claim that there is no arguments for the existence of God. We're bringing arguments. This was one argument, and we brought critiques back against their critiques. We brought critiques back against some of their critiques. So we will continue next week, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.